Hello, and welcome to an evening at Club Matinee. This is coming to you in the Fifth Ward Cultural Arts District, one of Texas's newest cultural arts district, on the stage of the historic Deluxe stage on Lyons Avenue. This is powered by the Fifth Ward Community Redevelopment Corporation, and I am Harrison Guy, the Director of Arts and Culture for the Fifth Ward community. I'm so excited about this tonight. We got Jazz Houston coming to bring you some amazing music, but I'm most excited about our host that's going to take us through tonight. We have Tierney Malone, who's a visual artist. He's also a radio programmer. He's the host of Houston Jazz Spotlight, which is on 90.1 KPFT on Wednesdays from 4 to 6, and he is the founder of Jazz Church Houston. We also have Flash Gordon Parks. He's an ethnomusicologist and is all things music and especially all things Houston music. And then we have some live painting going on tonight. A very special piece will be created by visual artist John Whaley Jr. So I'm going to get out of your way, enjoy, share with your friends, and let's have an awesome night of music.
Hey, John, you mind going ahead and just introducing yourself and a little bit more about what you're going to do tonight?
Yes, sir. So my name is John Whaley. I'm a native of Lake Charles, Louisiana, but I currently reside here in Houston, Texas. Tonight I'll be painting a visual experience for our guests, and I do hope they enjoy. But I want to let everyone know that the painting is something relevant to what's currently going on. We lost a lot of greats this year, 2020, but I just kind of want to pay homage to those greats. Also, I want to let everyone know that my hometown of Lake Charles, Louisiana has been affected by Hurricane Laura. So what I'm doing tonight is raising proceeds to help fund those that are in need. So I hope everyone enjoyed the show tonight. Keep back, relax, and just enjoy some good times.
All right, John, man, we can't wait to see what you come up with, man.
Thank you.
Tierney, man, how you doing, brother?
I'm all right, brother. How are you?
Man, excellent. I'm really excited about this showcase tonight, man. We got a lot of great information to share, a lot of great performances. I'm gonna let you kick it off, man. Tell the people a little bit about how special Club Matinee was.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I didn't know anything about the Club Matinee till a couple of years ago. I'm always learning about the music history of Houston, being the host of the Houston Jazz Spotlight. I'm so amazed at our history here in Houston. And I discovered that the club was opened in 1936 by a brother by the name of Louis Dickerson. And it was open until about 1973, but it was the premier jazz and blues and rhythm and blues club in the city of Houston and in the South, I understand. It was called the Cotton Club of the South because it rivaled the famed Cotton Club in Harlem, New York. And the only
Right.
And the difference between the two clubs is that, of course, the Cotton Club in Harlem was owned by white people, whereas the Club Matinee was owned by an African American. So,
Matt, I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people tend to overlook Houston. Everybody that came through the Chitlin circuit had to come through Houston as a part of the experience of getting your name out there. And Houston played a large part in breaking a lot of artists outside of New York, Chicago, and LA, of course.
oh, most definitely, yeah. The jazz spotlights that you can't talk about jazz in America without talking about the great Lone Star State of Texas, but you definitely cannot talk about jazz in America without talking about Houston. But that also goes for music just in general in regards to jazz, R&B, and blues. I mean, you really can't talk about any of those forms of music without talking about Texas, but especially Houston.
Definitely. And I mean, so many people graced that stage from 1936 to 1973. And of course, through those people, of course, will reflect during that period as well.
Oh, definitely. And also, I don't know if you knew this or not, but did you know that KCOH was housed at the Club Matinee?
I did know that.
Yeah, man. So I know many of the watchers out there may be familiar with uh, KCOH through movie lore when the film Ray came out,
Right,
starring um, Jamie Foxx.
right.
And there's a scene where he's at KCOH in the radio studio, and he talks to his soon-to-be wife on the phone.
Right. He's
Well,
there with legendary King B.
Well, yes, King B was the premier DJ at the time, and there's a photograph by Houston Shutterbug, Benny Joseph, of the Club Matinee with a billboard on top of the Club Matinee with King B's photograph, and there's the KCOH, they call it the Big Voice van, sitting out in front of the Club Matinee. So the community at large, Houston at large, knew of the relevance of the Club Matinee.
I'm glad you brought up Benny Joseph too, man. At some point during the break, I have a book of some of his photos where, now that you mentioned it, that famous KCOH sign, because there was a lot of promo around the city for KCOH because it was the only outlet for many years to hear Black music on the radio. So I'll dig that up and show the audience, man, because Benny Joseph was definitely a pioneer, and just his ability to document a lot of that era is magnificent.
Also, in researching for this evening, I came across an article. Don't know what newspaper it was in, but it featured a young pianist. Her name was Richie Dale Archie, and it was showing her at the pianos, and they call her Miss 88. And it was talking about how she had just joined the Sammy Harris and his Matinee Express. So apparently, Mr. Sammy Harris, who was an educator in Houston, had a big band that often played at the Club Matinee, and they were called the Matinee Express. And in that article, it talked about how she brought a jump lilt to the orchestra, and that you can go and hear her performing with them for the next 4 weeks. So the Club Matinee has an amazing history that we have still yet to unearth.
Definitely, man. I mean, I'm learning things every day, talking with brothers like yourself, man, sharing a lot of great info. And it's so unfortunate that a lot of that history went undocumented. A lot of the people that were able to perform during that time are no longer with us, sadly. But there are a few, and I think you got a surprise for us later on in the show about some of the people that were there live in the flesh to perform at Club Matinee.
Oh, definitely. But also, I want to talk about, start off, a couple of cats who I know have a history with Fifth Ward because they grew up in Fifth Ward, and they also went to Phyllis Wheatley High School. And I'm pretty sure that they had the opportunity to perform at the Club Matinee at some point in time. The first cat, they're both brothers, is Illinois Jacquette. And he is a world-known and renowned saxophonist, tenor saxophonist. He got his start at Phyllis Wheatley High School, but really he got his start with his father. His father had a band. His father was a part-time band leader, and he put the band together because he had these very talented sons. So you had Illinois on tenor saxophone, Russell Jacquette on trumpet, and you had little brother Linton on drums. And I know that Illinois Jacquette and Russell both performed with Milt Larkin's orchestra, which was the biggest territorial band in Texas, right here out of Houston. And of course, Milt Larkin is from Fifth Ward, and he also went to Phyllis Wheatley High School. Oh, definitely. So Illinois and of Russell.
Yeah, man. I mean, Fifth Ward was just, busting at the seams with talent, man. A lot of great artists came out of that community. But we'll get into a lot of the different acts coming out of Fifth Ward and also performing at the legendary Club Matinee.
Also, I know there's a part of the history we're going to talk about tonight, and that is, you know, one of the reasons why Fifth Ward was a hotbed for a lot of this talent, and that is because of Peacock Records being in that
Yes.
community.
Yes, definitely.
And
yeah, go ahead.
no, I was saying, and I know that you have a very serious connection or affinity. DJ, you play a lot of artists from that label.
Definitely. You know, some of the notable artists, you know, Johnny Ace, Bobby Blue Bland, who later came on when Don Roby, who founded Peacock Records in 1949, 10 years before Motown, Black-owned record label out of the South, who also had the Buffalo Bayou booking agency that managed a lot of the acts coming out of Mississippi and, you know, that region of the country. But one in particular, T-Bone Walker, who I'll make a connection with. He grew up in a small town in Texas, but spent most of his time in Dallas. But when he was in Houston, definitely was performing at places like Club Matinee. You know, recorded for a lot of different labels throughout the years. One in particularly, Jetstream Records, which was ran by Huey Moe, who had a large contribution to Houston music culture. He was like a gatekeeper that allowed a lot of artists to go from the independent level to the major level. And, you know, it's just a lot of rich history that we're definitely going to get into. But Tierney, I'll let you kick it off in terms of setting up for the first performer.
Oh, well, most definitely. We have a treat this evening. We have Jazz Houston, and their leader is Brother Vincent, and he's a transplant from the East Coast who has made Houston his home, and he is going to be performing music from the repertoire of some of the musicians who are from Fifth Ward, including Arnett, Illinois Jacquette, and the likes. And I think he's going to start off with music from Illinois Jacquette, a standard that Illinois wrote called Robin's Nest. But before we jump, I think we have just a hot second before we jump. T-Bone Walker also was a member of Milt Larkin's band when they played at the Joe Lewis's club in Chicago, the Rum Boogie Club.
Right. Which was also a label too.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
So again, like I said, you can't talk about anything in music without talking about Houston at some point in time. And this evening, with us celebrating the Club Matinee, that is going to be very, very apparent.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into this first performance by Jazz Houston. I look forward to it.
Red top. My little red top, you really got me spinning, going round and round, and I don't want to stop. You got me so if I don't go around, I'm sure gonna drop. So red top, you just keep right on spinning, going round and round, and don't you ever stop. Remember that if you don't go around, I'm sure gonna drop. my little red top. You really got me spinning, going round and round, and I don't want to stop. You got me so if I don't go around, I'm sure gonna drop, gonna drop, gonna drop. So red top, you just keep right on spinning, going round and round, and don't you ever stop. Remember that if you don't go around, you just cool down, baby, 'cause I'm sure gonna drop.
All right, man, that was amazing. We just heard Jazz Houston perform Red Top and Robin's Nest, which sounded great, man. What'd you think, Tierney?
Oh man, it's fantastic, man. And again, Brother Vincent Gardner and Jazz Houston is celebrating Houston's musical tradition with that last piece, Robin's Nest, which is a jazz standard. And the jazz standard means that musicians all over the world play that as a part of their learning and performing repertoire. And Illinois Jacquette is one of the composers of Robin's Nest. So, again, man, it's a fantastic performance, and the history that we are celebrating is very relevant and very real. I want to talk about a super group from Houston that you are very much aware of, and that
Come on, man.
Helped put Houston on the map, and that's the Crusaders.
Man, Jazz Crusaders.
Yes. Founded by Nesbitt Stix Hooper, drummer, pianist Joe Sample, Wilton Felder on saxophone, Wayne Henderson on trombone, and two early members of the group, Henry Wilson on bass and Hubert Laws on flute. And all of these cats met in junior high and started to play together. And back in 1954, Brother Nesbitt Stix, we'll call him, started a group called the Swingsters with these musicians, and they eventually began to blend jazz, rhythm and blues, and R&B to create their own unique sound. And I had the pleasure of doing an interview with Brother Stix Hooper, who has a very, very intimate connection with the Club Matinee. And I think we're going to hear that interview right now.
Awesome.
Hey, Stix Hooper here, and I'm from Houston, born in Houston, and bred in Houston, and moved around the world because I play the drums primarily, all percussion instruments, and a writer, composer, and I've been very fortunate to have been born in Houston and in Texas, but been able, because of my music, I was blessed to go around the world and to play and perform and meet a lot of people with a group called the Crusaders and the Jazz Crusaders, et cetera, and we have really had a lot of fun, and I've had a lot of fun in my life. Well, the Club Matinee was the premier place and the prime place in Houston when we were growing up. However, we were pretty much almost too young when we were in school and high school to play there, but there was one day, I think, a week where they would allow high school students and whatever to come in, and that's how we got familiar with it. But we would go there that we could hear some of the great musicians that lived in the city. And our band director at Phyllis Wheatley, Mr. Sammy Harris, took us there not only to listen, but at one time fixed the time that we could go in and perform as musicians as the Wheatley Orchestra, and sometime in a small group. And that we were also called the Modern Jazz Sextet at that time.
And
wow. Go ahead.
What you think about that, brother?
Man, I just to hear him, man, that brother is what, 82 years old?
82 years young.
82 years young, the last remaining original member of the Crusaders, especially as they transitioned into just a four-man crew, moved out to LA, and set LA on fire. Like, so many people associate them with LA just because of the contributions they made. One in particular that is a notable one, when Motown moved to LA, Wilton Felder, one of the greatest to ever do it, is responsible for a bass line that's been sampled time after time with the Jackson 5 on I Want You Back. I mean, that bass line makes the song. Without that, it's not the same groove. So for them to impact, and that's just one of the things that they impacted in terms of pop music is concerned, coming from a jazz background. But yeah, man, Crusaders definitely one of my favorites out of the city, out of Fifth Ward. I mean, countless samples in hip hop, Joe samples. I mean, Tupac's, Dear Mama. Joe sample. I mean, it's, Biz Marquee. The list goes on and on of the people that sampled the Crusaders.
Oh man, and again, they got their start at that great music incubator of Phyllis Wheatley High School, for which, many years earlier, like I said, you had cats like Milt Larkin, you had Jacquette, Russell Jacquette, Arnett Cobb, Tom Archia, going through that program. And in 1933, Duke Ellington, who would travel around the country, came to Houston, and he went to Phyllis Wheatley High School to listen to those cats.
Wow.
So
yeah.
Can you imagine being Arnett Cobb or Jacquette, and a cat whose music you've been listening to,
right.
on records and radio, comes to your school and
right.
Listens to you perform.
And I don't think people might not understand just how big Duke Ellington was. That would be the equivalent of, a Jay-Z or, somebody that's just a fixture in hip hop coming all the way to check you out, because you're that talented. And that blows my mind, because I often like to make the parallels to what's going on now in contemporary music, based on what was going on during the era of Jim Crow, where we had to be together. We had, everything was segregated. So you had so much talent and so much competition that you had to be even more on point, just coming out of these communities, these neighborhoods like Fifth Ward, I mean, just imagine what a day in the life, going to school and everybody's coming with something,
Yeah. Also doing that interview with Brother Sticks Hooper, he talked about how when he was 12 years old, him and some of the members of the Crusaders, because they weren't old enough to go to the club, besides those special occasions when, they were taken by their band director, they weren't able to go into the club, but they would go and stand by the window and listen to cats like B.B. King. And he talked about how, it was very interesting that as a kid, he's listening to B.B. King play at the club matinee, but then some 15 years later, he would be writing and producing, some of B.B. King's biggest hits, because
right.
Crusaders recorded a number of albums with Brother B.B. King.
Now, you were telling me there were two in 78, right?
There was two albums back to back. I don't have the names of the two albums right in front of me, but
no worries.
Yeah, but they made a number of recordings with Brother B.B. King. They did a concert in London with the London Symphonic Orchestra, with Brother B.B. King. And then, of course, as you mentioned, we have a connection with B.B. King through Peacock Records, because Brother B.B. King was managed through the Buffalo Booking Agency, which was an arm of Peacock Records. So B.B. King was in Houston quite a.
So, yo, next playing another of tight and check in on you over there. Looks um man, I'm these mediums, culture, and All right, man. Jazz Houston, killing it. That was their version of Uptight, more notably performed by Stevie Wonder and Motown and Hucklebuck. Amazing performances. Man, Tierney, this has been a great showcase so far, man. I really enjoyed just being able to talk about a lot of this history that's, maybe not widely known, or, you've shared a lot of great information. Man, that clip with Arnett Cobb was, not Arnett Cobb, with Sticks Hooper was amazing. I got Arnett Cobb on the brain, man, because we're about to talk about him. But before we get into Arnett Cobb's contribution, I want to talk about Grady Gaines, who is a native of Fifth Ward, played with a lot of amazing talent. People like Sam Cooke, Joe Tex, Jackie Wilson, many people, phenomenal saxophone player and band leader, but most notable, what he's probably known for the most is being the band leader for Little Richard. And as we check in with John Whaley Jr. over there, we can see the painting that he's making coming together of Little Richard, who passed away during this COVID-19 2020 that has taken a lot of legends from us. But Grady Gaines, man, amazing, musician, still around. If he's not 100, he's close to 100, if I'm not mistaken. And just to have the opportunity, you and I were talking a little bit off mic about, us having the opportunity to sit and talk with him, but also to see him perform and still got it. He's performing with his son and his family. His brother, Roy Gaines, is also a notable Houston musician. Uh, they've recorded throughout the city, doing a lot, man. What are your thoughts on Grady? I know you're a fan.
Well, the thing that through Grady, I realized that Houston had a connection with Little Richard. I didn't know that Little Richard lived in Houston for a period of time. While he lived in Houston,
Right.
he was a session musician at Peacock Records,
Mm-hmm.
and he had signed with Peacock Records before he went off and made his big deal and became the Little Richard that we know
Right.
him to be. But he took Houston by storm when he was here.
Definitely. I mean, some of the recordings he put out, which we mentioned Don Roby earlier, founder of Peacock Records in 1949, which started from a club he had, similar to Club Matinee, the Bronze Peacock, which was a legendary club of its own, in Fifth Ward as well. And another musician who has a connection with T-Bone Walker, which we were talking about earlier, is Clarence Gatemouth Brown, who got his start by filling in for T-Bone Walker. As the legend goes, T-Bone Walker was booked for a show at the Bronze Peacock, wasn't feeling too good during the set and had to leave. And here comes Clarence Gatemouth Brown taking the opportunity to showcase his talent. And he's was a multi instrumentalist, but mostly known for his guitar playing and his fiddle playing. Just a lot of pioneers out of Houston, man, in involving blues and jazz. And Clarence Brown, one of his famous recordings was the Okie Dokie Stomp, which he recorded in the 50s, but then later redid it, almost a decade later and made it even more slamming. So, just to see like those kind of things get worked out, coming out of the city is an amazing thing. And Don Roby, who doesn't get enough credit for the impact that he had on the culture at large, to acquire Duke Records from Memphis, Tennessee, and bring that into the fold of what he already had going on with Peacock, with I mentioned Johnny Ace, Buddy Ace, Junior Parker, then acquiring that Memphis sound. That's how he got Bobby Blue Bland, which was one of his, his most prolific artists of the time.
Well, you can't forget also artists that a lot of people don't realize got that start with Peacock Records. That's Big Mama Thornton.
Oh yeah, definitely. Big Mama's.
She recorded Hound Dog right here in Houston long before
Yes.
Elvis.
On Peacock. Yes.
Yes, on Peacock Records.
Right.
And that's definitely one cat I want to talk about before we get out of here that you know we can't get off of the show without talking about one of the stars from Fifth Ward, and that is Arnett Cobb.
Yes, yes.
Cobb, I consider him the dean of Houston jazz. He got his start at Phyllis Wheatley High School, performed with Milt Larkin's big band. And my understanding is that every band leader around the country, when they heard Arnett Cobb, they tried to ask him to join their band. Actually, Lionel Hampton tried to get him twice. The first time he
right.
went to Milt Larkin's band, Arnett wasn't ready to go, and so he asked Illinois Jacquette if he would go, and Lionel Hampton says, "You can go with me, but you got to play like Arnett Cobb." And Arnett is known for one of his standards called Smooth Sailing that he wrote for Miss Ella Fitzgerald. But it's my humble opinion that if Arnett Cobb had not come back to Houston in 1960 after making a name for himself in New York, and there was a big parade that they had for him when he came back that shows you how serious he was. He mentored the next 3 generations of musicians and built institutions that are still here today. So we cannot, leave the show without talking about Brother Arnett.
All praises due. So, next up, we got the ultimate tribute to Arnett with the Jazz Houston playing Smooth Sailing, man. I can't wait to hear this one.
Thank you all very much. On the piano, we have the wonderful Mr. Philip Jones. And on the bass, we have the great David Craig. On the drums, we have the amazing Daleton Lee. And on the vocals, joining us on Red Top, we had the wonderful Kiora Michelle joining us. We are the Jazz Houston Hot Five, and we are grateful to be a part of this project celebrating the matinee. It's such a wonderful part of Houston's legacy, and you all should learn much more about it. But thank you so much for allowing us to be a part of this program. My name is Vincent Gardner, and we are going to take it out with Horace Silver's Song for My Father.
All right. That was an amazing performance by Brother Vincent Gardner and Jazz Houston. We heard Smooth Sailing, The Standard by Arnett Cobb, and we heard Song for My Father by Horace Silvers, excuse me. And I want to kick it over to Brother Jason.
Yo, man, I had a phenomenal time doing this. Man, thank you, Tyranny, for, chopping it up with me. Thank you, everybody that tuned in. Thank you to Brother John Whaley Jr. over there. Looks like he's finished with the piece. Looking good, man, looking real good. That is Little Richard, which we mentioned earlier. Man, if you're not following or, subscribing to the Deluxe Theater's Facebook page, do that now, because there'll be more information on how you can, get in contact with Brother John Whaley and, the work that he's doing over there. It's amazing. And, just to also stay on in Fifth Ward, because they are doing their best to continue to carry on the tradition and the legacy that has been laid by the ancestors. And there's a lot of history that we're trying to uncover and preserve for us, you know what I'm saying? And I definitely feel like, it's much needed and much appreciated by those who care. John.